Thanks for watching ECSO News on Blab TV, where facts matter.
2 ECSO deputies were honored by the governor earlier this month for their bravery. Deputy Robinson and Deputy Chambliss were honored to receive the governor's life-saving award. Robinson and Chambliss were patrolling the beach on July 26 on ATVs near Avenida 19 when they heard a group of people, 2 women, 2 men, and 5 young children calling for help from the water. Both jumped into action while Chambliss was able to push the women and children out of the rip current, where Robinson was able to reach the children and women and pull them to safety. One of the male swimmers was able to escape the rip current and swim to shore. Lifeguards, EMS, and fire and rescue arrived on scene and assisted the last remaining male out of the water.
It was a huge team effort, not only with us, but lifeguards when they got there, EMS, checking on everybody. It was just a huge teamwork effort on everybody's part.
We don't need a thanks or anything like that. They're safe, we're safe, everyone went home.
We need your help locating the people in this week's Missing Person segment. The first juvenile we are highlighting in this segment is 16-year-old Frederica Marisa Walker. Walker's been missing since November 27th. She's considered a habitual runaway and has an active warrant for probation violation. We're also looking for 15-year-old Nicholas Hunter Parrish. Parrish has been missing since December 4th. He's considered a habitual runaway also and has an active warrant for violation of probation. And 17-year-old Alexa Haley Lacoste has been missing since December 10th. This is the first time she's been a runaway. If you have any information on any of the missing persons, please contact the Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 436-9620.
Did you want to be the first one in line for the early preview of the Rogue One, a Star Wars story at the Carmike on Bayou Theater? Well, you're too late. Senior Deputy Minor, along with his family and some friends, have already set up tents and are camping out to ensure they're the first in line to pick their preferred seats in the theater. The group will be playing Star Wars trivia each night and are inviting other fans to join in on the fun.
We want to be the first one to pick our seat. Now, granted, we've already purchased our tickets because they went on sale weeks ago. But we want to be the first people in the theater so we can pick the exact seat that we want, middle, because it's 3D IMAX. So.
We have an update on the case from December 4th when deputies responded to the 800 block of Montclair Road in a reference to a possible suicide. After further investigation, it was determined Jordan Malik DeMaz shot and killed the juvenile victim. DeMaz was arrested and charged for negligent manslaughter, weapons offense, and destruction of evidence.
We need your help locating Tina Galagoria. Galagoria has a warrant for robbery by sudden snatch and burglary of an occupied vehicle. If you have information on her whereabouts, please contact Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP or Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 436-9620.
It's that time again in the episode where we get to bring you our most wanted with the fabulous Deputy Melanie Peterson.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So who are we highlighting today?
Well, today we're going to highlight Clayton Gamble. Clayton's wanted for fraud and giving false statements. He has a bond of $7,250. We're seeing a lot of fraud right now going on, partially due to the holiday season. Income tax time will be coming up. And so there's going to be all kind of allegations of fraud continuing. So we hope to nip these few that we have in the bud, get them arrested.
Go ahead and get them taken care of.
And the next one is William Emmett Thomas. Mr. Thomas is wanted for DUI and unlawful blood alcohol level. Bond of $30,000. I believe that there was some property damage involved in there, so evidently there was an accident. And finally, we have Vincent Stephen Russo. He's also wanted for fraud and swindle, bond of $2,500. So.
And like you said, around this time of year, we see more cases of fraud. Why is that?
Well, I think it opens the door for potential for fraud, whether it's credit card fraud, people are stealing more to purchase items to return, a lot of your identity theft. So we constantly want to remind people, keep control of your debit cards, keep control of your credit cards, pay attention to the skimmers that are being placed on ATMs or around town and stuff, and don't leave your purse unattended.
Absolutely not. And the skimmers, they're kind of a newer thing. I mean, we've seen in the past, maybe 10 years kind of coming up, and people put them on gas pumps too when you're pumping gas. So you can kind of pull on that face to see if there's one, or just maybe always go inside to use your card.
Absolutely, but I always, if I'm paying at the pump, I always check, I pull, and if there is a skimmer attached, you will be able to tell because it will move around. Also, I always encourage people, be careful when you go to restaurants. There's nothing wrong with using cash. If you're going out, because I'm not accusing anyone or saying anything, but you know what? If you sit that card down for a few minutes, it just takes a few minutes to jot that number down and get that 3-digit code off the back. Very easy to take people for a lot of money.
And that's why we're seeing a lot of restaurants now have the pay as you can at the table. Those are great.
I love those. I love that. I think everybody should have them because it really does. It cuts down on a lot of the fraud or misplacing. I've actually been at a restaurant and it be dropped, and we had to locate it. So it happens. It's an imperfect world out there.
Well, if anybody recognizes any of the 3 people we talked about in tonight's episode, how will they contact you at Crime Stoppers?
They have 4 ways to contact Crime Stoppers. They can contact us at our 24-hour-a-day call center at 433-STOP. You can text your tip to Crime Stoppers at 274-637 or crimes. In the body of the message, I always want them to put GCCS and the message that they're providing. They can go to the Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers website at gulfcoastcrimestoppers.org. The right-hand corner of that page, they can click on Tip Submit. And the 4th most convenient way for those who have an iPhone or an Android device, they can go into their app store and upload the Tip Submit app.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. And again, that number is 433-STOP.
We'd like to say welcome to the ECSO. These are the new law enforcement student trainees. They will be attending Law Enforcement Academy at George Stone Training Class as Class 47.
Well, last week's episode, we showed you the swearing-in ceremony, and we welcomed our new Deputy Chief Simmons. So welcome to ECSO News.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So last week you were sworn in here. Can you tell our viewers what your role is here at the ECSO?
Yeah, thank you. I've been sworn in as the Chief Deputy of Operations. Eric Haynes will remain the Chief Deputy in administrative side, and I will be handling the operational aspects, patrol, investigations, narcotics, and those types of operations we have here at the office.
And I know you've been here, 2 weeks, but last week you were out on training.
Right.
What are some new things you're hoping to kind of bring to the ECSO, or what is a plan that you're hoping to bring here?
Well, I think that primarily what you want is a safer community. I mean, I raised my family here. Both of my kids were born and raised here in Escambia County, and we want our children, our family, our grandkids to have a safe environment to live, to work, and to play. So along those lines, we want to make the Sheriff's Office the best that it can be. I've had many conversations with Sheriff Morgan in regards to what needs to be done. What does the future hold for Escambia County Sheriff's Office and in the community, obviously. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at everything that we do, every operation, every process that we do, and see if we are doing it as efficient and as necessary as we possibly can. So really, we just want to make everything better. Do what we do, and we do so many things well. We just want to always strive to do better.
And this isn't your first time wearing one of these green uniforms or being a sheriff's deputy?
This is not my first time working for the Sheriff's Office, no, but it's the first time with a green uniform. Back in the mid-'80s, we had the gray uniform, the gray top, and then the green pants. So yeah, I worked here for 2 years as a corrections officer before I went to the Pensacola Police Department for 29 years. And so it is a bit of a homecoming for me. I mentioned during my swearing in how proud I was in 1984 of becoming a member of the Sheriff's Office under Vince Seeley, who was the sheriff at the time. And I'm just as proud now to have the opportunity to continue my law enforcement career at the Sheriff's Office.
And you spent many years over at PPD. You were the chief of police there. Were there any programs that you started there that you might see us doing here, or something that you might want to elaborate on that we do at the SO?
Well, yeah, I would tell you that not everyone does everything right. I mean, when I was at the police department for many years, we would learn as much as we could about what everyone else was doing, and we would steal as many good ideas as we possibly can, some of which we stole from Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We let them take a look at some things and kind of rough some edges, and it worked out pretty well for us at the police department. And so I hope to maybe take a look at what we're doing here and compare it to what we were doing at the police department, and see which one might work better, be a better fit for the sheriff's office, and again for the community itself.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you in a green uniform instead of the black over there at PPD. So,
well, it's dark blue at the
dark
Pensacola
blue.
Police Department, but it does
It
look
looks
black,
black.
and now it looks it's dark green. So.
yes. Well, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. And please make sure to stick around for Ask the Sheriff.
I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and thank you for watching Ask the Sheriff. This is your chance to ask me any questions you want answered about the ECSO. Our team hits the streets again, and here are some of the questions you asked. There's a lot of similarities, Allison, between civilian law enforcement and the military. While the military, of course, is much stricter in its control of its personnel and the living conditions, etc., it's a much more communal organization than civilian law enforcement is. There's so many things that are parallel to the military. We wear uniforms, we carry guns, we have a rank structure, we have a standard that we're compelled to operate and live by that's much higher than the standard, for the average civilian. And I make no secret of the fact that, we expect so much more from our law enforcement officers. Why? Because we enforce the law. And so the law has to apply to us doubly if we're going to enforce it against, our fellow citizens, because most people never consider it. I'll be honest with you, I consider this every day. When I commission a law enforcement officer on the low end of their authority, I want to emphasize the low end of their authority, they have, by law, the permission and authority to take your freedom from you by virtue of the fact that they're law enforcement officers. In the extreme, they also have the authority under the appropriate circumstances to take your life. That's a tremendous amount of authority to invest in any individual in our society. And so, again, we have a very high standard that we've maintained at the sheriff's office since I've been sheriff. And again, I would put our record up against any previous administration as far as our arrests, our enforcement of the law, and also our integrity and our honor and our professionalism, I think has grown by leaps and bounds over the last 8 years. And so again, I couldn't be prouder of the men and women of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. And so that background, I think, from the military brought me in with a clear understanding of what we needed to do to raise the professionalism at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. And I will tell you, again, I couldn't be prouder. The men and women here have stepped up to the plate. That's why you hear in Escambia County today a phrase that I'm just extremely proud of. People refer to our sheriff's department, not the sheriff's department. They refer to our sheriff's department. That means that we have been embraced by this community, and that our citizens are here to stand with us and to help us. And so that's why Escambia County is such a great place to live. Probably most importantly, what I bring to the office is the emphasis in the military, which again I did a career in the United States Air Force. I retired after 20 years as a security police officer and a short time with the Office of Special Investigations. We're required as commissioned officers to attend courses on leadership. There's Squadron Officer School, there's Air Command and Staff College, Air War College. I did Squadron Officer School and Air Command and Staff College. I did not attend Air War College. And then in addition to all of that emphasis on leadership and management, not only of people but of your resources, budgeting processes, the higher you go in the rank structure, you're training now at an executive level. You're not just at a street level, you're at the executive level. And then you're evaluated on this throughout your military career. And you can end a career if you don't show the leadership qualities that they look for in an executive and also practice those principles. And so I would say the military background has assisted me the most in bringing that culture and that understanding to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office.
What situation is justified for lethal force?
Well, Kayla, lethal, the word in itself implies great bodily harm or loss of life in most instances. It can be probably best defined in a short definition because we don't get into scenarios. And the reason why is because now I would be dispensing legal advice and someone would go out and say, well, you know, the sheriff said, or I can do this because the sheriff said. And so I'm, number one, not an attorney, and I certainly don't practice law as a result of that. I'm not part of the state attorney's office, nor am I a judge. And ultimately, that's where you would be judged if you were in a situation to use lethal force, which our officers also do. But what it really comes down to is, are you defending your life or the life of another? And that's probably the two that are at the very top of the list, to where, well, you could almost always say that I'm authorized to use lethal force if you've put my life in danger and I'm running the risk of losing my life, or I'm in a situation where I can, again, make the on-scene legal assumption that you're going to take someone else's life. All the other circumstances surrounding that get into so many gray areas of the circumstances in their totality, meaning we have to look at everything that occurred that led an officer up to believing that they had to employ lethal force. And so that's what our courts decide. The case is reviewed by the state attorney's office. In our case, we refer all instances to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for an independent investigation. They then make recommendations to the state attorney's office, who they and their investigators review it, and then they come back to us, and we have a conference with the state attorney, and they brief the entire case, and they'll say, Sheriff, you know, we have found the following. They also have an option of taking it to a grand jury, where they can have an independent body of the citizens in Escambia County to review the case as to whether or not charges should be brought. So it's a very lengthy process. It's an excellent question, but it's also very difficult to answer in a short period of time and give you yes or no answers, or it applies here and it doesn't apply there. But that's what our law enforcement officers deal with every day. They make split-second decisions that they have to live with the consequences for the rest of their lives.
Is there a plan towards bullying?
Brianna, bullying has been around forever. You know, there were bullies when I was in school, believe it or not, and unfortunately there's bullies today. What we're talking about is human nature, and I will tell you, it's a lack of parenting. When children are allowed to develop that attitude and or personality, that they feel that they have a right to control someone else or threaten you or intimidate you in a situation in school, which we refer to as bullying. We have anti-bullying scenarios that we work with, and other social services programs will come to your school and help you cope with, or how to identify and cope with, a bully if you're in a bullying situation. So we're actively engaged in that program. Why? Because bullying, if not stopped early on, can lead to the commission of a crime, meaning a crime can be committed, because it's like any situation where it's almost a domestic violence situation. If allowed to remain and continue, it will escalate, meaning it will go up. And a bully becomes emboldened because no one is stopping them. And so therefore it gets, it goes from taunting, which is the use of words, to physical contact, where I may shove you or I may strike you. I may take money from you, lunch monies or monies that you may have, or an article of clothing. So in that case, we want to make sure that we get early intervention. But I can tell you, in our school system, we have a very active school resource officer program. Work very closely with your school system. I can tell you, your superintendent, Malcolm Thomas, is all about these programs. So be sure that you report that. If you don't have an SRO in your school that's readily accessible, that's a school resource officer. In the city, it's the Pensacola Police Department. In the county, it's my sheriff's deputies. Contact one of them, or tell your teacher, but tell a responsible adult what's going on, and they're the ones that intervene.
My question is, I live in the county right outside of the city limits, and I want to know, how do the city and county work together, because I also live in a high crime area. How do they work together in conjunction to fight crime when you're right there on the border?
Audrey, that's an excellent question. I have daily contact with the Pensacola Police Department through all of our different units and divisions at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, just not with the Chief of Police, David Alexander. We coordinate very closely, especially on drug operations, because so many times narcotics operations will involve not just local, county, and state officials, but obviously federal officials if it bounces up to the federal level to get engaged with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. So that goes on all the time. Now, we have authority throughout the county. This can be confusing for civilians to not understand that as the chief law enforcement officer for Escambia County, I and my personnel can write tickets inside the city limits or anywhere in the county, or we can run drug operations anywhere in the city or anywhere in the county. The reverse is not true. The Pensacola Police Department's limitation is for the city limits, and so therefore they can only operate there. But we, again, work all of these operations as you're asking, so it's a joint operation. If you report a drug problem, either to the city or the county, I can guarantee you that it will get to the right information will get to the right people. So we're here to help. Hopefully that'll help you a little bit about the jurisdictional issues with the city and the county. And remember, you can call 911 for an emergency, or for a non-emergency number is 436-9620. And if you don't want any contact with the officer that you called at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, meaning you want to remain anonymous, make sure that you tell dispatch that, and then that way you will have no officer contact, but you can still report your information. So thank you so much for your question.
My question is, are there any internships at the Sheriff's Office?
Michaela asked about internships at the Sheriff's Office. Michaela, we've had several. They kind of ebb and flow depending upon the needs of the Sheriff's Office. We bring in folks for different areas. We have administrative assistants that come in sometimes and work internships. We've had some in our public information office. During my tenure here at the Sheriff's Office, we've had probably 3 or 4 interns come through. Depends upon what your major is and does it have a place in law enforcement. So again, if you're going into criminalistics, which is that side of law enforcement that you're wanting to become a crime scene technician, etc., we could probably have a limited internship there. One of our biggest problems at the Sheriff's Office is even if you're an intern, every one of our employees, as opposed to, I'll use the county government as an example, but every one of our employees has to go through a background check, even if you're just doing an internship, meaning that you're subject to drug screening. We do a records check on you. You may have to take a polygraph examination, depending upon where you're going to go. And because of the limited time that an intern would have in certain areas, it's not really worth the time and the effort and the expense of doing a background for a very limited time that you would have, say, for this internship in college. But we do have them in different areas. So I would encourage you to come down if your intent is just to learn about law enforcement, or specifically the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. While you might not intern in an area, say, that you're majoring in, it would give you an opportunity to work at the Sheriff's Office for that semester or two, which, however long the internship would be. We also pay most of our interns, by the way, so you would earn a small salary anyway. I think we pay about $10.75 an hour to our interns, to the starting interns. And you could find out about law enforcement in general, not just at the Sheriff's Office, but the field itself. So I encourage you to check our webpage and our Facebook and look for those openings and come down and please apply.
When I'm driving and I see a erratic driver, who do I call? Do I call 911 or is there any information I need to know, or what do I need to do?
Datari asked what should he do when he's out in his vehicle and he observes erratic driving, someone crossing the center line or running off the road. Should you dial 911, and then what specifically or what action should you take? Number one, be safe. We always recommend that you back away from that driver. Do not try to pass. So stay behind the vehicle. Again, get out of that lane if at all possible, as quickly as possible. And yes, dial 911. Information that we need is your location and the location, of course, of the car, obviously, that you're calling in. And again, as good a description as you can give. If you're good at vehicle makes and years, then please give us that. And of course, the all-important license number that you can give us. And then the dispatcher will ask you to describe the type of erratic driving. Then the nearest patrol will be dispatched. Many times we'll even patch over and get an assist from the Florida Highway Patrol. So again, call it in. Do not intervene yourself. Remember, you are not a law enforcement officer. In today's world especially, you do not know what you might encounter with a confrontation with some driver. It could turn into road rage. And remember, a vehicle is thousands of pounds of weapon. And you'll always come out on the short end of the stick if you get into that sort of confrontation with another driver. So again, dial 911, make, color of the vehicle and the all-important license number and your location and exactly what the driver of that vehicle is doing. And then again, if you want to follow or they ask you to follow, make sure that it's at a safe distance back. Again, we don't want you to end up in an accident. Christina's question was about any timelines on taking a report on someone missing for a child or an adult. The short answer, Christine, is no. I know, we see on television and sometimes in movies, the myth that is perpetuated that you have to wait 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. Now, while some states may have that, and again, I won't speak to the other 49 states, I can tell you within Florida, there is no statutory or local ordinance that we are aware of that says I have to wait a certain period of time to take the report and to put out the alerts. Now, what we do, and the rule is if it's age of 26 and under, and we think there's some endangerment involved, meaning that it may have been an abduction, etc. Of course, we immediately put that out, and by that I mean we enter it into some national and state databases. They're the NCIC, which is controlled by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and FCIC, which is controlled by the state of Florida, and that's the Criminal Information Center, the National Criminal Information Center, NCIC, and of course Florida is just for Florida Criminal Information Center. So we do that immediately if it meets that parameters. We also take into consideration the condition of the individual that you're reporting, and let's say that it requires a silver or amber alert being for children, silver alert being for adults. Are they suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's? Have they escaped or gotten away before from the family that's caring for them, or if it's possibly a managed care facility or a nursing home? Those are things that precipitate immediate reactions by law enforcement as opposed to waiting a particular period of time. But again, the short answer is no. Each and every individual condition is considered as to what reaction we do in law enforcement to do the best that we can do to help recover that individual who is missing. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV Tuesday night at 8 p.m.